At Morning Glory, we never sleep. Connect with us on Facebook.
And we're back at 16 minutes after the hour on this Monday morning, October 16th, 2017. I'm Gloria Purvis. My co-host is Brian Patrick. Our producer is the lovely and smart Elisa Murphy. And our godly counsel is Monsignor Charles Pope, who's the pastor of Holy Comforter St. Cyprian Church in Washington, D.C. I'm on the line is Serrin Foster. She's president of Feminists for Life. Good morning, Serrin.
Good morning, Gloria.
You know, I'm so glad to talk to you about what has happened with Harvey Weinstein in Hollywood. In case people are unaware and have not heard of the story, Harvey Weinstein was a big producer with Miramax Studios, and a lot of big-name stars came forward to reveal sexual abuse, sexual harassment they had experienced in Harvey Weinstein's presence. You had Gwyneth Paltrow, you had Angelina Jolie, you had so many people come out and talk about what was an open secret in Hollywood, and now he's finally facing some consequences. What do you think the impact of Harvey Weinstein's alleged sexual abuse has been?
Wow. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that when people heard the chilling recording of Harvey Weinstein coercing a young model named Ambra into a sexual situation she clearly didn't want, it really made me ill. And I think that, as you said, this has been an open secret in Hollywood. I wasn't aware of it, of course, but retroactively I started hearing all sorts of jokes in Hollywood about this that were on tape. And so it really was, as you said, an open secret. So I think that this is really hard for Hollywood, who has been going through a period of denial and acceptance, one or the other, in some cases both. And so it's time really for them to take an inventory of themselves as people who have said that they support women and support victims. I also think that we need an investigation, a real investigation of this, whether it's at the federal, state, or local or international level, as now it appears. So there's going to be a lot of investigations into this. I'm sure there's going to be lawsuits, et cetera, but most important, I think we have to remember this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and people who end up in interpersonal situations that are coercing women into sex against their will, or men, that we really need to hold them to the standards that this country has set. So coercing anyone by using their powerful position is reprehensive and inexcusable. I think most people will understand this. And so I think that we all hope that this man or any other person in power goes through a period now of self-examination and seeks help and seeks forgiveness while the courts properly deal with them. And I hope that other victims stand up for themselves as well.
Well, Serrin, as I was reading the stories about Harvey Weinstein, the thing that struck me is that it seemed to a progressive sort of thing. So everybody got used to his abuse, his verbal abuse. So it started off with him demeaning people, really, being abusive, yelling, cursing, and just being flatly disrespectful to people, and yet somehow that was tolerated as okay, I guess because he was bringing in money to the company. He was also obviously the co-founder of the company. But to me, that was the beginning of allowing him to slip into, as far as he got. And what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say that the word casting couch has been around a lot longer than Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
So I think that there must be something culturally going on there, although I'm not in that business, so I don't know. But if you have a term that's bandied around like casting couch, there's a reason for it. It sounds cultural to me, and it sounds like a lot of people thought that if they spoke up, they wouldn't be believed, or that people didn't want to hear about it, probably more accurately. And a lot of women, especially young women, when they go into this, they feel very powerless. I think it's also a problem that they don't have women in power as many as men do, and it's more likely that, unfortunately, that men will be the predators. So there's a lot of self-examination, I think, on the part of the industry that needs to take place, as well as federal and local or state investigations that would be appropriate.
Serrin, I that's kind of what I was going to ask you. Do you have a sense, all of a sudden these many charges come out, and what makes a story like this break? I mean, you mentioned that there's fear that keeps people silent, but There's been other stories that never got legs, so to speak. There's just probably thousands and thousands of these stories, and yet this comes out now at this point. Any idea what makes a story like this just break open? Maybe someone has courage to stand up, or what is it?
You're exactly right. Ambra Balatina Gutierrez was being abused by Harvey Weinstein, and the next day she called in the appropriate authorities, went back, and she was taped by the authorities. So that's when people got to hear it. And before that, people like you and me, we didn't really know this was going on. I don't watch Letterman or some of these late-night shows where people are making it a joke, although I'm sure a lot of the audience didn't understand why it was so funny, and it really wasn't anyway. But I think it's when you really hear somebody not pleading, but pushing and bullying somebody else into an uncomfortable, unconsensual act of sex, knowing full well this man is married to a gorgeous woman. Not that that really matters, but you feel sorry for the wife. That's where I'm going with this. But you heard her and her cries, and it was like if you could have been in the room, and stopped them, you just wanted to be, But thankfully there were authorities, and that's when he became accountable. And I think there are interesting comments. One person on our Facebook page for Feminists for Life was reacting to the comments of other actors like George Clooney. Who said, I didn't know there were 8 or 9 victims. I didn't know it had gone this far. Yeah. And she said, this far, basically one was too far.
Well, when I was reading the article from George Clooney, a lot of what he was also saying, which was interesting to me, is they just didn't know what it looked like, what sexual harassment looked like. And he said, to see an old man basically around with these young women, that didn't raise any eyebrows, because they're like, well, he's a guy with money. But then he said to find out the length at which this Harvey Weinstein person went was shocking. He also admitted that Weinstein was known for screaming at people and just being abusive in that way. But that was just, accepted. And why they didn't understand it, maybe that could further develop into something even worse. I don't know. But I believe Brian has a question for you.
Sarah, this kind of behavior is not exclusive to Hollywood, though, is it? I mean, it happens in businesses all across the country.
Legislation. It happens in many, many fields where people are powerful. There are some people who don't separate in their brain power, one kind of power in terms of business power, from power over people. And they lose respect, I think, not just for the victim, but for themselves. And so wherever this happens, we absolutely have to help those victims seek support, seek healing, seek legal redress. And this is the time, especially during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, to make sure that people understand this is real. On the other hand, it doesn't mean that every time a woman screams that a man has been raped, it's true. We've got to also keep some balance here. Every person who says they've been victimized, it may not be true. So it's really important that we have the proper authorities. It happens on campus. I believe that we should have police who are professionals, not campuses, seek out the truth, because schools have a vested interest in making sure that they don't have numbers of rape behind them. When parents are looking at where they want to spend their teenage daughters, they don't want to go to a school where rape is rampant.
And I agree with that. I think that's some very good advice, Serrin. And we all need to be more mindful and keep our eyes open and our mouths open, too, when we see things that are abusive, and speak up. Thank you so much, Serrin Foster, President of Feminists for Life, for joining Morning Glory today.
Thank you.